Joining.
Will you intro, Lee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate session of the day. We have Nick Crawford here with us, who is the founder and CEO of Work Networks, which is a UK-based company with a mission to connect everyone inside the world's organizations. So Nick is here today to talk to us about the equity of employee voice in a hybrid world and answering a few questions such as, how do we ensure that everyone, whether office-based, hybrid or remote, has an equal voice at work? And how do we solve this and management's home working productivity paranoia? Recent research has highlighted. So two great things there, Nick, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to the session ahead. So I'm going to drop off the stage, leave you to it, and I will come back at the end for any questions. So just a reminder, everybody, please post your questions in the Q&A box at the right-hand side. And if you're not on the leaderboard yet, post more questions and it will get you on that leaderboard in time. So good luck, Nick. Take it away.
Thanks, Lee. And on reflection, I should have given you slightly less of a mouthful to have to try and describe what this session is about. Hello, everyone. It's an absolute honor to be here. I'm Nick. I was going to introduce myself, but Lee's just done a good job of that. We absolutely do, help organizations trying to connect all of their people and ensuring that, if people have a voice, we're certainly doing our best to make sure that that voice is heard if they want it to be heard. And then just to say, before I carry on, I really enjoyed Russell's kickoff session this morning, which for those of you who may have seen it, how to make your slides less shit. Obviously wish I'd seen that a week ago, but no, I'm hopefully kidding. I wasn't planning to give you death by PowerPoint today, but you guys can be a judge of that. So yeah, I'm here today to talk with you all about equity of employee voice during these crazy hybrid times. What do we even mean by equity of voice? I often hear people, internal comms colleagues, talking about the fact that we need to be giving everyone a voice. I think just as a start point, I actually take a slightly different position on that. I think if you think about it, we're not giving anyone a voice, right? People have a voice. And I firmly believe that our role as professional communicators is to help those voices to be heard rather than actually giving people a voice. So with that, I will attempt to share my screen and Chrome tab. There we go. Boom. And there we go. Everyone has a voice as opposed to giving them a voice. That's what I believe. So yeah, listen, I was thinking, how on earth do I structure a talk on this quite challenging sort of topic? And so I'm going to have to thank the author of this book, Julia Hobsbawm, who I don't know if you've read this. It's called The Nowhere Office. And sorry, the sun's shining through my window at an awkward angle. There you go. It's a really good book. So I'm just going to plug her book because I've also pinched some of her thinking from it to help me try and structure this talk. And the reason I'm just mentioning that is that she's a very clever lady and she's sort of broken down the evolving world of work into 4 phases. And I'm going to kind of lean on those phases so that we can sort of take a look back, how things have evolved. And then, obviously you have to look back sometimes, don't you, before you can figure out where things are going. So basically in Julia's book, she talks about these 4 phases, and I'll, try and go through this fairly briefly. Post-World War II up until sort of 1976, she called these years the optimism years. And these were exciting times, right? Post-war, skyscrapers popping up everywhere. Believe it or not, people actually wanted a job in an office, and it was kind of sexy and cool to work in a skyscraper, and it's obviously New York there. So that's all good. I think it's fair to say that the problem back then was probably not so much equity of voice at work, more about the kind of inequality of who could even get into the office in the first place. And from an internal comms perspective, things were pretty basic, right? So here we can see good old Don Draper doing an all-staff town hall, and that was great. But the point being, you kind of had to be there face to face, and it wasn't exactly the most interactive place. I think you would have had to be quite brave to put your hand up and say something back to Don. That guy's not particularly known for being inclusive. But the point is, so there are some so-called leaders today who, I get the impression probably think we need to be going back to these supposed halcyon days. I'm thinking of you, Jacob Rees-Mogg. I've thrown that one in there for my colleague Matthew. But let's be clear. Back then, I think there probably wasn't anything known as employee voice, and these guys probably didn't really care to hear it. And the reality is, so things have moved on, and because things do move on, and thank goodness things do move on. And so in the next phase in Julia's book, she talks about she calls it the mezzanine years, which for those of you who are interested is referencing a 1986 Nicholson Bacon novel. And this takes us from 1977 up to 2006, which I guess is probably the unless there are any kids here, that's probably when anyone who's on this call, watching this video, started work. And I guess my big sort of take, or I think we'd all agree, we're all sort of in this, is or we're in this. This is when work started to feel like a bit of a grind, right? We had to get on busy trains and planes to commute to the office. And the office was perhaps starting to feel a little less of an attractive and exciting proposition. But of course, in the background, technology was evolving and advancing, here to save the day. And from an equity of voice perspective, arguably things were starting to improve. Work was getting a bit more inclusive. The channels were obviously still very kind of limited, right? And there's a horrible email inbox. Apologies for showing you that. But the reason I'm showing you that is, obviously what sort of happened at a high level is everybody jumped on email. I'm certainly not the first to have sort of said it as the single solution for sort of everything, right? And we all ended up chained to our email inboxes, thinking there's got to be a better way, right? And I guess to an extent, voices started to be shared, but not very effectively in things. But of course, email, let me get you out of here before you start getting lost reading these horrible words in that inbox. There were other channels and things as well coming along too, right? Like the lovely old school intranet, which of course was fairly broadcasty and not necessarily great for employee voice. And of course, thank you, my colleague Dylan, for these lovely pictures. The employee satisfaction survey, the employee engagement survey. And look, I'm not knocking these things. I used to myself had the pleasure of managing the employee engagement survey process across the whole of Centrica and British Gas. And we made a good effort of it. But I think if we're honest, a lot of that employee voice was probably lost inside management reports that gathered dust in a folder somewhere, despite our best efforts. So we're getting closer to current times now, so bear with me. The third of Julia's 4 phases in this lovely book, which I seem to be plugging a lot, what she called the co-working years, right? So we all know what happened here. Start the Great Resignation. People like me sort of set up a company to try and help others to work and communicate from anywhere via any device. And arguably, great and exciting times were back, right? So I think for me then and still now, arguably these times were and are as exciting as perhaps people were finding it during those post-war optimism years, just very different, right? So a kind of exciting time, potentially more freedoms and things, but also a way more complex time, right? And whether that's because of more fragmented employee needs, fragmented tools, channels, meeting solutions, how on earth can we, poor, internal communicators and communicators more broadly, IT departments, how can we keep up with this kind of massive change and deliver these kind of deliver what everyone needs when they've all got different needs? So the good news is we now have social platforms inside work. We've seen some being presented today. Something which frankly terrified people when I first got involved with those back in sort of 15 years ago when I had hair. And of course, we have Teams and we have Zoom, and don't we all know it? And we have so many more things, almost too many things. And the one thing we probably haven't got is enough time to figure out, get our heads around it all. And very quickly, not wanting to talk too much about me, but I can talk because I went ahead and set up a fully remote business. where all of my team can kind of work from anywhere, and that on one of that's absolutely amazing because I'm able to tap into talent, if you like. Dylan, he's probably with us today. He's in just outside Liverpool. Matthew's Brighton, Jen's in Sheffield, etc. I'm in South London. So it's just incredible, right? We can all work from anywhere. But of course, at the same time, I'm having to evaluate constantly the right blend and usage of synchronous and asynchronous comms channels and tools to help my people feel connected and listened to and able to support our clients. But look, it's okay for me and my team. We're a relatively small and simple business, and you're probably thinking that. And we can live the dream like this lady here appears to be doing. And that does look pretty chilled place to work. But forget about her, forget about us for a minute. What about employee voice for complex organizations like some of the ambulance services we work with, or some fire services we actually work with as well, or indeed companies with large frontline field-based colleagues like many of you no doubt work in. How do we ensure fairness, ensure that people are listened to equally wherever they are, whatever their role? Easy question, right? And I will try and answer it eventually. So, some of you probably work from home full time now, particularly post-COVID, and I'm sure everyone says that a million times. And if you do, maybe sometimes you get FOMO. Maybe you get that feeling that those people in the office, maybe that are they sharing the juiciest opportunities? What about our frontline colleagues, like examples that we can see here? They've always had that disconnect. They've always felt that they weren't, perhaps listened to or understood, and that there was this massive gap between themselves and the office-based sort of contingent. So I think, look, the answer to this question, I think, is we have to harness simple, easy-to-use tools, platforms, and we've got to get our leaders and managers to use these properly, which is easily said, I'm sure. And in the same way that, part of the problem, email, when it came out, was used, abused, overused from the outset. We're now in a world where Teams, Zoom, and the like are arguably overused. And, we often feel, I guess, like this guy, just back-to-back Zoom meetings and things. It just can't be right. So I guess the point I'm moving towards is we've got to get a better balance of synchronous and asynchronous channels, real-time stuff like face-to-face meetings and Teams meetings with other kind of channels. And I think, this may sort of seem obvious, and I'm sure you might agree, it's not that easy. I think a lot of organizations still really haven't cracked this, right? I think they feel that maybe, COVID happened and now everyone's using Teams. We've done it. We've done sort of digital transformation. But, you may have seen Microsoft's recent research. What's going on here? It seems to be suggesting that if you talk to employees who are working remotely and things, that they're saying, hey, yeah, we're busy getting stuff done, we're productive. Then when you talk to leaders in those same organizations, they seem to have absolutely no trust ultimately in what's going on. There seems to be a massive problem there and a massive disconnect. And I'm just quickly going to plug, we're running an event if anyone wants to come on the 3rd of November at Meta's offices in King's Cross. It's a free event, free breakfast. Got great companies coming along and organizations. I know friends at London Ambulance Service are coming along, and Thomson Reuters and things. So there'll be lots of like-minded internal communicators there. We'd really love to see you there. So let me know if you can find a link to that in our booth. There you go. How's that for a plug? What's going on? So this kind of so-called productivity paranoia, which I think is a very accurate way to describe it. And by the way, yes, so our event's going to be talking about trust, and we've got Jenny Field coming. She's going to do a keynote on trust and start to answer some of these things. But the point I think I'm trying to make here is we can't just rely on Teams meetings, email. If we want people to really feel part of something, to really share their voice, and to feel that they're actually really being listened to and engaged with. And what we're seeing is that we're really, really lucky. The forward-thinking companies we get to work with, and I say companies, right? I've mentioned, NHS trusts, hospitals, ambulance services, but also, FMCG and engineering firms and automotive. We're working really with lots of sectors. There seem to be some common sort of threads here, which one of which is, strong leadership really wanting to move this stuff forward, that we kind of help them with that. But then they are using easy, consumer-friendly tech. So yes, this is Workplace from Meta, which I've got to admit is the we often talk about trying to make these tools feel like consumer friendly. It really is, and I've not seen anything yet that is more sort of consumer friendly. So here, for example, we can now, these companies can now just do live broadcasts, as you probably know, right? Just like a Facebook Live, they can do a workplace live, and people can interact with that, and that can be immediately available securely to any device, anywhere. Frontline staff, etc., can get involved. It's quick, it's easy, it's powerful, it's familiar, right? Which I think probably everyone keeps saying. And then they're using groups, right? And apologies for the screenshots. I had to use these kind of anonymous ones rather than any kind of real client ones. But basically, they're using groups, as you'll know, for news, for open discussions, for employee networks, LGBTQ plus groups, Black and minority ethnic communities and allies, and everyone can come together and be heard. And this stuff wasn't really happening not that long ago. And yeah, it's being done on technology that's as easy to use as WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, but with, of course, the safety and the security of data ownership and controls. So another sort of slide there. So, this is kind of not future of work stuff, right? This is kind of just where we're at the moment. And I think, we're really privileged actually to have these kind of front row seats where we see organizations before and after bringing in these platforms and see the impact that leaders, CEOs, C-suite, whatever, line managers who get involved in conversations, who really listen. We're seeing the very real impact on how quickly that can, accelerate culture and accelerate change. And I'm at risk of rambling on about that, but we will be available later if you have any questions or want to have a coffee or chat about any of this kind of thing. So the point is, we're also having to keep an eye on the future as well. And it wouldn't be any presentation in 2022 without mentioning the metaverse. It's the thing is, this stuff is kind of real now, right? So and in my business, we're able to start really kind of exploring with this stuff. As I say, I've got a team around the UK. I wouldn't even know where to put an office. I realized that problem fairly early on, but it's a nice sort of challenge. So we're having to play around with this kind of technology. And in fact, there you can see Matthew and Dylan. Matthew looks unbelievably like his avatar in real life, as does Dylan. Of course, mine. I've still got to work on mine. But we're experimenting with this stuff. It's still really beta. It's a little bit clunky, but we can come together and do brainstorms with post-it notes. We can really feel like we're in the same room. It's not everything. But it's part of the mix. And I can tell you, it's definitely part of helping us feel like we're in the same place. You wouldn't want to do it from 9 till 5, obviously, but it's definitely part of the mix. And at the same time, we're keeping an open mind. And I try to listen to my people and their voice. And it turns out actually that so far the kind of preferred channel we've found, that's not teams or groups or any of the things I've sort of mentioned, is actually walkabout mini golf. Believe it or not, that might sound absolutely ridiculous, but ask any of my team. They feel, whether that's one-to-one or in a small group, actually you can sit there and have a chat whilst knocking the ball around, and it's just way more relaxing and natural interaction than staring at someone through a sort of Teams meeting where you feel very put on the spot, perhaps. So look, that might sound bonkers, but we are just trying to keep an open mind where that's all going to go. Do we need to recreate the confines of the physical office if we're in this whole new world? Why can't we have a chat while we're virtual fishing or something, and then just take a note down, to capture the actions? Look, things continue to change, and they're changing fast. The point is, I think, just looking back at those kind of 4 phases, and thank you, Julia, for those. I hope she wouldn't be happy with that. I plugged her book a lot. There you go, buy her book. These things are changing. We've got the tools now here, right? And, we've got the tools. Let's just make sure that people are being heard and listened to. So if you want to know any more, if that was in any way thought-provoking, we've got a booth, a Work Networks booth. Please come and have a chat. We can share stories, case studies, challenges. We'd love to meet you. We're going to try and be in and out all week. So Jen, Matthew, Dylan, myself, please don't be shy. Yeah, everyone has a voice. There we go. Let's not give them one. Let's make sure those voices are heard. And thank you very much. Lee, did I go too fast?
Oh, no, that was great. Sorry about my delay on
I
coming up.
thought I'd just try not to take up the full 25 minutes because I know it's the end of the day. So
No,
there you go.
absolutely fine. And there are a couple of questions in the Q&A box for you.
Lovely
Just
people with questions.
comment
Thank you.
from Alice Brown. We have a comment in the chat saying that she used to use Workplace and it's such a great way to see all areas the organisation are up to. The catering team share dessert pictures and developments share site images, for example. Oh, imagine that, dessert pictures. So,
Like just on that, I suppose that the key there is how these things are, set up, right? So you don't just have everyone chucking everything into an everyone group, and you end up with people who are not interested in desserts having to see dessert images and cats and dogs. There needs to be a dessert group
who
and a
could
dog
not
and
be
cat.
interested in dessert, Nick?
Hey, look, I mean, okay, maybe that's a really stupid point because everyone likes dessert. You're right, Lee. I'm an idiot.
So, jumping into the questions, we have a question from Polly Oliver, who is an internal comms business partner at Tarian. Sorry, I hope I said that correct. Probably
Oh,
not.
wow.
Hope I'm not putting this question in too early. How do you avoid channel overload so staff are clear when they can be heard and not confused, and B, persuade distrustful management to adopt this kind of tech? Yama was a battle.
Wow, amazing. I've crossed paths, Polly, with perhaps colleagues of yours in the past at Titarian. Lovely to have a question from you. So there were two parts of the question, weren't there? There's a sort of leadership part, and then there was the content overload one.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's a really, really great question. And I suppose in part this comes down to having sort of good tech, but in part it comes down to setting it up in the right way. I mean, I guess we just alluded to it just now in talking about desserts. But I think to keep that at a reasonably high level, I guess there are kind of strategic and operational organizational groups which you might want to set up, like the all-staff news group, and these groups you can generally configure them, right? So the all-staff news group, typically we would see that would be controlled by the admin in internal comms and or whoever else they might want in OD or HR or whatever it is. And so that group should be set up probably as the source of the truth, the proper kind of news in there. And then typically you might want to still let people comment and share and like and interact with that content. Whereas, there might be other small number of other organizational groups set up for the kind of cross organizational discussion or debate about culture or values or whatever it might be, or projects or things like that. But then, of course, you've also then got that balance of letting people set up their own kind of groups. And I guess, I guess there needs to be, it's not a complete free for all, I would suggest, because things will get quickly messy. And so a little bit of design up front is always a good idea. And then a bit of housekeeping. Someone's got to be the host of the party, really, and keep things good. In terms of the leadership question, so I don't know, Paul, if that was an obvious answer, maybe. Happy to give you some templates and things to show you how we would approach that. In terms of the leadership thing, I wish I could bring Matthew in here because he's amazing. My colleague Matthew, he's an executive coach.
Bring him on stage if you want us to.
No, don't worry, I can't. I'm not going to put it. He'll kill me. I know he hasn't prepped that at all. But I mean, he's like an exec coach, but working in this kind of environment, and we see a broad spectrum, right? As I'm sure you all do, of exec. So I mentioned ambulance services. We've got Northeast Ambulance Service. Their CEO Helen Ray, right? She just embraces this stuff. She was selling it to us. She jumps into the LGBTQ plus group to share that she's been at Pride. She just spreads the love naturally across everything. She listens and demonstrates listening. She connects people, and it doesn't get much better than that. And then we work with obviously other exec who fall into all sorts of different categories, I suppose, or personas. And there's no right or wrong, right? And so I think the key is helping them be authentic, obviously, helping them understand that they don't all need to suddenly become a Helen like I've just described, right? If that's not them, then that's not going to happen overnight. But the stepping back, the bigger part of your question is helping them understand the organizational value that they're going to get out of this. Look, Matthew said he can join. Come on, bring him in. Is that right?
Yeah, sure.
We've run out of time there, haven't we? We've got a few minutes.
A couple more minutes.
Matthew, yes, legend. Over to you, mate. Answer that very good question.
Hello?
Camera's on. Camera's off.
It's just at the bottom. There we
Hello.
go.
There he is.
Excuse me. Thanks for inviting me into your session. So if I'm going to talk, if you want to know about leadership, just one tip, I suppose, for this, that what workplace really enables is for leaders to be authentic and to connect as human beings to people all across the organization. And some leaders find that instinctive and easy. Some for some it's a bit more of a journey. You have to walk through it step by step. But one thing that I advise that's usually helpful along this path is for leaders to establish a listening network. A lot of leaders worry that they have to solve everything, that when they're alerted to problems or to things that staff are concerned about, that they need to jump in and give answers. And that's not the case. People want to know that they've been listened to, first of all, that there's someone out there who's responding and who knows that they're suffering. A lot of the time when we're bearing a heavy weight, we want to be able to say, this weight is really heavy. We don't want someone to come and take it off our shoulders. And so for a leader to do that, to recognize that people are going through the things they're going through, even if just with a like or with a comment or with an appreciation, that can be enough. But having a wider listening network, and again, this is where comms teams really come to the fore. We really believe that working with workplace puts comms at the heart of the organization. They enable other departments by this kind of process of connection. And so using the comms team as part of your listening network, so if the exec says they've only got a little time to connect with the workplace every day, but the comms team have got a little secret group of where they should be commenting or linking or providing the most impact, then that's when the execs and the comms team, link up to amplify the exec's presence. So there.
I was on mute. Amazing. Lee, I didn't lie. Matthew's incredible. Have we lost Lee? Have we lost Lee? Oh my God. Are we on our own? He's back.
Well,
we're now the hosts of commsHERO Week. Oh my God. No.
The stage quickly. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. Listen, as you can see, Matthew's a legend. I know we've probably gone over time, but that's a great opportunity, frankly, to show you how lucky I am to work with amazing people like Matthew. And we're available for a coffee. We'd love to, or whatever you want to drink.
I was going to say I'll ask you one more question from the Q&A, just before we wrap up. So the last question is: any tips on bringing in the IRL to hybrid as well as tech?
Oh. Yeah. How long have we got? Okay, go, Matthew. But I think go for it. We may have a different angle on this, Matthew, but you go.
This is a really important point here. That the more tech is in the working environment, the more IRL is needed. And for me, that if you've got no way at all of bringing your people together in person, then sending things to them sometimes as surprises, so that they get things that all kind of arriving in the post, for example, that they're not expecting on a particular time or date, even if that is a weird object, for example, that has been circulating that no one knows about until it's arrived at their desk, and then they suddenly take pictures of it, or some kind of coordinated campaign where you are sending people things, again, that they're interacting with, or that there is a task for them to go out of their homes and do something with before coming in. There is a way of almost planning those activities without actually having to be in the same place at the same time, but that means that people go out of their homes or being stuck in front of their desks in the world and then coming back to you. That's the closest I've managed to do yet. But I'd love to hear from you or from anyone else out there about what you've done, because I think that IRL stuff is super important here.
Yeah.
Well, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And just before I start wrapping up, Nick, you actually had a comment from Russell Anderson Williams to say, great presentation.
Stop it.
There we go.
I'm not worthy. No, I obviously rewrote the whole thing straight after I saw his session. So thank you.
So thank you, Nick, for presenting. Thank you, Matt, for joining on the Q&A session. Again, thank you for sponsoring commsHERO Week as well. As you said, you've got a booth within the platform. So if you're listening, if you've got any questions, join the booth, see the guys in there. There's also a table in the networking lounge, which I'm sure you'll be on after this. So for those questions, I know we didn't get through them all, so I apologize for that. But for those questions we haven't answered, join the table with the logo on it. They'll be sat on there and you can get your question answered there. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break now, and we'll be back with Harriet Small and Rebecca Roberts right after that with a panel session. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you all soon.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for staying with it. And hello to anyone watching it in a year, I guess. But yeah, cheers.